r/ask Reddit. What happens regularly that would horrify a person from 100 years ago? Talking about World War II. Wait, there's a second one? Why do you keep calling it World War I? Edit. I get it. They started calling it World War I before World War II started. Thanks for making my joke accurate. Now it's hilarious. The Germans? Again? I think that transatlantic flights would be a real nail biter. Trans-Pacific flights. Wait, there's no island between Los Angeles and Honolulu where we're going. We won't need Honolulu. Gulp. Exposed midriffs in public. Exposed ankles everywhere. People dressing casually in general and not a top hat to be seen. Gonna go a different way with this. Cause driving by, when cars first came in they capped out at about 16 kph, or 9 miles per hour for Americans. School zones are like triple that where I live. The speed and regularity of several ton machines whizzing by would be unsettling. Edit. Grammar. Edit 2. Apparently the speed limit was closer to 20 miles per hour in that era. Still, big change. A little more than 100 years ago. But when they were first invented, people didn't like trains going over a certain speed because they were convinced that women's uteruses would fly out. I think it's safe to say that my driving 80 down the interstate in Atlanta, who am I kidding? We never get that fast without traffic killing it, would give anyone from 100 years ago a literal heart attack. I've never heard the uterus thing, but I've read that there was concern about the trains moving so fast all the air would thin out and everyone would suffocate. People fear the unknown, I guess. Cheap. Everyday cars capable of going beyond 100 miles per hour. Cheap. Finding out that diseases such as measles, rubella and polio are now completely preventable, but there are people who chose to risk getting those diseases. There actually was an anti-vax movement when the first vaccine came out, but back then they had a good reason because there was a real chance a vaccination could kill you because they were injecting you with a less deadly form of polio, but still deadly. There were anti-vaxxers back when the first rudimentary vaccinations for smallpox were available. They said vaccines weren't part of God's plan or something like that. Of course they all died of smallpox. Guys not in 3-piece suits every day all day. Nobody wears hats anymore. 2. God wants you to wear a hat. Astronauts. This is what I was thinking. The moonwalks, ISS or the rovers on Mars. We sent a man to the moon 50 years ago. There are people on the moon. No, they came back. We stopped after a few years. Shit's expensive. Next day delivery of items online. Edit. The entire process of being able to order whatever you could think of online, then it being at your doorstep the next day. I'm amused by the thought that they'd be cool with the internet, credit cards, and online shopping, then be totally freaked out by next day delivery. I'm not so sure they'd be freaked out by the next day deliveries. At that time, in the UK at least, there were several postal deliveries each day. When you posted a letter in the morning, it would arrive that afternoon. Interracial dating. Hell, my grandpa is scared of that. He's probably not that far from 100. Yoga pants. Faints in Victorian. Faps in Victorian. Brazilian waxes. Imagine how terrified women 100 years ago would be. Fun fact, some women waxed their privates in ancient Egypt and some other parts of the Middle East, and the Greeks plucked theirs. Early 20th century women were more into shaving because companies were starting to market their razors towards women, but the concept was probably not entirely foreign to them. Plucking. Oh my lord. What a painful time-consuming task, holy crap. Any part of 90% of people's fashion, but especially women's fashion. At the same time, they'd be so comfortable. Imagine the first time trying on soft cotton underwear, stretchy sweatpants, a bra that isn't garbage, and some running shoes, or really, anything not made out of leather. It's like, hey, a human person designed these garments. How about organ transplants? 100 years ago this would have totally been impossible to consider unless you read H.G. Wells. Best answer right there. Even doctors a century ago would have been convinced organ transplants were impossible, and they'd be right to think so. A lot of drugs and medical tech like heart and lung machines were beyond science fiction back then. Antibiotics would blow their mind and we take them for granted today. Smartphones. Put one of these in 1919 and people will straight up believe it's powered by voodoo demon magic. Unless you listen to Nikola Tesla a few years later, we shall be able to communicate with one another instantly, irrespective of distance. Not only this, but through television and telephony we shall see and hear one another as perfectly as though we were face to face, despite intervening distances of thousands of miles, and the instruments through which we shall be able to do his will be amazingly simple compared with our present telephone. A man will be able to carry one in his vest pocket. Source: https://enm Wikiquote. Org Wiki Nikola Tesla Control F vest pocket to find the quote. I'm on mobile. Tesla was such an amazing visionary, if only. Gay marriages. I really don't see the problem here. Of course marriages would be a gay time for everyone. Found the guy from 100 years ago. Considering that 100 years ago was the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic, people would be horrified that we've basically found a solution to plague, but many people aren't using it because they're afraid it'll cause autism. Person from 1919. What the duck is autism? Oh, you mean those people we lock in cages? Alternatively, oh, like John? Yep, he's a bit strange and won't talk to anyone but his brother, but he makes the best watches, so whatever. As a serious answer, the rampant waste and commercialism. My great-grandparents bought very little and reused everything. Even things that broke could be used as parts to fix made into something else. When they slaughtered a hog or cow, they used everything. Same for an animal they killed hunting. Never threw food away. They'd be mortified to see how much money is slopped away on frivolous items only to discard them with little or no use. Different time and different society, and I am guilty of it too. But that is what I think they'd completely lose it over. Horrified because they wouldn't have the means to buy a new one. If you told them it's cool, it's cheaper to get a new one than to repair it, they'd probably be cool with it as well. Yeah, historically people weren't reusing things because they were concerned for the environment or wastefulness. That's modern thinking. If they'd thought that way 100 years ago, we wouldn't have gotten into the environmental situation we're in now. 100 years ago they were reusing things because a new rotary phone cost more than an iPhone 10 does today, and could be repaired very inexpensively. We have robots in our pocket that answer questions for us. The word robot wouldn't have even existed 100 years ago. It was coined in 1920 for the play Rossum's Universal Robots. It was borrowed from a Czech word meaning forced labor. Oh, sorry, an educated slave in your pocket who can respond to simple inquiries. Women or minorities holding positions of power like elected office or CEO of a company. Nellie Taylor Ross was the 14th governor of Wyoming, serving from the 5th of January, 1925 to the 3rd of January, 1927. http://www.uyo.edu/lawliblibera info display case Nellie Taylor Ross. Yes, it's Wyoming. Interesting history there. In any mass migration it's primarily young single men who migrate first. Once the average guy has a little bit of land and financial stability, the next thing he wants is a wife. Dudes in Wyoming read the news from back east, see that women want the right to vote, and collectively say sure you can have the vote. P.S. Please move here and marry us. Wyoming Territory grants women the vote in 1869. In certain parts of the United States women had the right to vote in territorial and state elections before 1920 when they gained that right in federal elections. So by 1925 this had been Wyoming tradition for more than half a century. The concept was neither new nor radical there, and Nellie Taylor Ross essentially filled in for her husband when he died midway through his term in office. Still, this wasn't completely horrifying in 1925. Which means it probably wasn't horrifying to the people of Jackson Hole 6 years earlier, which is kind of cool to consider. Okay, but that was only 94 years ago, not 100. Both us and our enemies have weapons that could destroy the whole world if used. Selfies that you take and send to your friend across the world and seconds later get a response that says, peace hand sign. Obese people who are poor or at least not rich. Chemistry, wireless devices, our plan to going to Mars, nuclear weapons, the sort of equipment police has, a lot of music genres, Shaggy's power. There are many more legal restrictions now on what you can and cannot do than in 1919. In most cases they are sensible and related to safety or legal issues, but in any case, these could be interpreted by people from the past as an attack on personal freedom. Small dogs being dressed and carried like babies, dog strollers. You need to look at some turn of the century paintings. The late 1800s, early 1900s were when breeds became a thing. They were a total status symbol and regularly flaunted in ridiculous ways. Pet parenting really started to become a part of the culture at this time. England started it. It spread through Europe and then America followed their lead and always tried to show them up. Those people were the OG fur moms and fur dads. Automatic doors. Sorcery. Literally anyone getting sick with something that can be solved by antibiotics now and then being fine a week after. Magic driving. Cars of today can reach 100+ miles per hour. Cars then went a tenth of that speed. Flying. Commercial aircraft. Large airports. Security lines, etc. Looking outside the window of an extremely tall building like the Space Needle. Twin Towers. Never forget. Even Empire State Building edit. For clarity, since people have pointed out that these things existed in some fashion back in January 1919. People watching at a southern Walmart. People watching at a southern Walmart. Fix that for you. Apparently masturbation. Lots of people hated it. Lots of people said they hated it and never admitted to doing it. But they all did it. LGBT pride parades. They kinda horrify some of us now, let alone some poor sod from the 1920s. Probably the fact that like 70% of people are obese or whatever that stat is. The fact that most first world humans have a device in our hands that's capable of accessing a network containing vast stores of information. A compendium of nearly all of the knowledge that the human race has accumulated over time. That also serves as an instantaneous communication device between you and a good portion of the rest of the world. And we use it to argue with each other over petty shit and look up memes and pictures of cats. Maybe not. In the mid-19th century, thousands of miles of telegraph cable were laid out with pinpoint accuracy across the bed of the Atlantic Ocean. A magnificent featuring by the standards of the time, enabling almost instantaneous intercontinental communication. The first message sent by this technological marvel was "OI, you suck." The second was "your horse is gay." Interracial marriage. Probably the fact that I don't go to church in a suit. Heck, I was wearing jeans and a polo to church for the longest time. Actually, probably even just the style of clothing that I wear on the daily anyhow. Extremely casual, kinda rough, very influenced by working construction, and my favorite cargo pants would be enough to make my great-great-grandmother yank me back inside by the ear, throw out my entire wardrobe, and force me into something nice. I wear a suit for Christmas, Easter, weddings, and funerals. That's all I ever wear a suit for, and I'm actually on the fancier side of many people I know. I sneeze sometimes. Nice, Ron. I sneezed. Oh, I'm not allowed to sneeze. People rejecting medicine. What do you mean you don't want to be immunized against the disease that killed my brother and maimed my aunt? Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.